What? I just took my glasses off and I can't see anything. What's happening? Who's there? Oh. What's up, YouTube? Thanks for joining me on my the next one will be the next. Yeah, thanks for joining me. It's very cold outside, so and I just got some toys in that I really want to talk about. So if you saw in an earlier video, I reviewed the Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons cartoon figures. Today, I wanted to talk about the brand new, just got them in, Dungeons & Dragons from NECA, Grimsword and Warduke. Wait, what? What? Just kidding, haha, Grimsword and Warduke. Look at that, I put a little water on them and they grew into these. Amazing figures, might I add. I'm gonna talk about them, I'm gonna get in deep. Before I do that, make sure to like, subscribe, and bell icon this video, the channel. Watch my old videos, they're fun. I'm gonna go into some depth and the watery depths on these figures. But I'm gonna start off with a couple safety concerns for these figures, not for myself, because I've noticed people having some issues that I wanna talk about. Before I do that, if you wanna support the channel directly, you can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/actoydesign. where you'll find all my behind the scenes on the work that I do and how I do it. Also, my podcast, You Like Toys, is about to hit 100 episodes. Today, the 91st episode came out, episode 91 of our Q&A podcast for the community over there. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. So check that out. And in the meantime, I'm going to talk about these guys. These are amazing. I love you. I love you. Okay, go to bed. AC, take it away right now. So right off the bat, I want to say NECA comes through with the boxes once again. These things are awesome. I don't know who does the box art for these, but I want to find out. If you guys have any info on that, leave a comment below. Let me know who's doing this box art. Specifically the Grimsword. Something about the eyes there. It's just like piercing laser beams. So looking at Grimsword, he has a sword that's pretty grim. Dang. Evil action figure. So kids, this is not for you. This is an evil. Let's look at the back. Grimsword. Grimsword includes sword, snake, mace, snake, shield, and interchangeable hands. So he comes with a bottle of mace that's from a snake venom, I guess. So you can spray it on people who are trying to rob him. It's got the open window box treatment with your Grimsword art on one side, which is really great. I love the background. But then the display of the figure itself in the side. He's a beast. He is a giant beast. So before we open him up, let's look at Warduke's box as well, and then we'll get them both out battling. The Duke. Dookie. You got good old Dookie. Warduke. So this is a figure, this is a character. Both these guys I grew up with when I was a kid. But Warduke was actually in the cartoon for one episode with the wizard Kellic, the evil wizard. So great, again, great box art. Very 80s feel, old Dungeons & Dragons playbooks feel on there. And on the back, displayed with his fire sword. Can't wait to do that. I think I'm not usually into like a ton of accessories with my figures, but that's a cool accessory. Got a couple cool poses. I particularly like this one where he's like, yeah, I don't need my sword. I just got these two little daggers and I'm gonna come at you and shiv you, okay? Then you got the shield, which I love, and then also available Grimsword. Comes with long sword, with removable flame effect, short sword, dagger, skull shield, interchangeable hands. Awesome. Let's get them open. Do it now. Do it now. I want to start off with a little bit of size comparison. So these guys here are the original LJN 1983 vintage toys of Warduke and Grimsword, as you can see. Two of my favorite toys of all time when I was a kid. Grimsword came along a little later, but Warduke was one I had from the beginning. And just, I've loved him ever since. So what, 40 years? I've been in love with this guy. So having a new one like this is amazing. Of this scale, I'm not usually into bigger toys, bigger figures, but these are amazing. They look great. Sculpts are amazing. They are spot on. And the figures, after messing around with them for a second, are extremely durable. They're great. The way they're built, maybe a little too well built because some of their joints, as I'll show you, are kind of tight. But usually in the past, NECA have been afraid of breaking the joints. These, as long as you start off with a couple safety tips that I'm about to give you, I'm not worried about the joints at all, breaking or anything like that. So I wanted to show you the vintage ones. I'm going to get them out of the way, and then we're going to go into each figure. I think I'm going to start with, again, I'm going to start with Grimsword. All right, so Grimsword. Look at that guy. What a beast. So right out of the package, I was pleasantly surprised with the fact that, let's see if I can show you, the way that they're packaged, a lot of times you can have to pry. You know, they're tied in with these plastic ties, but sometimes you have to pry the pieces out of these clamshells, in which case a lot of them can get damaged on their way out right out of the package. But with these, the pieces, the accessories, the figure, they all, once you snipped the plastic ties with some of these plastic snips, which I highly recommend getting, the pieces just came out. They just fell right out. So they were in securely, but they weren't snug and tucked in. Once you got the plastic ties off, the pieces just fell out, which is great. I really appreciate that. Kudos, NECA. And then also, when these were delivered, it was 7 degrees outside here in Chicago. So I brought them in, I sat them in front of my space heater, still in the boxes, and slowly took the boxes out of the boxes and then let everything warm up for about an hour before I actually opened them up. So after doing that, that gets all the, the pieces defragilized and thawed out. You still want to be pretty careful. I'm going to grab a hand here. So here's all of Grimsword's spare hands, and they're all really sturdy, thick pegs, which I like, which is different from the Hasbro Dungeons and Dragons. And with those Hasbro figures, I've seen a lot of the bobbies specifically having broken pegs, and you can always see on that one. Here's Warduke's hand, and we'll get to the details of Warduke's hand. So the problem with Bobby is that two things. People are opening them, it's winter, they're going right to the posing, right out of the box, the figures are cold, the plastic snaps. On top of that, Bobby's hinge in his wrist goes up and down, okay, rather than side to side, because it's a bow hand. So people are trying to move it in a direction it's not made to go. The peg snaps. On top of that, pegs are very long and thin. I highly recommend thinking about physics and not to talk down to anyone, but the fulcrum of the joint is always in the middle of the joint. So in this case, the lower palm, right where it sticks out of the arm, that's going to be where the joint turns, the fulcrum, and that's where you want all the pressure to be. You don't want it to be on the peg. So if you're holding the hand out here and the peg is inside the arm and you're trying to move it up and down, you're putting more pressure on the peg than you are at the fulcrum of the joint that's supposed to move. So what I do to avoid that, once it's heated up and once you know you're moving it in the right direction, you push the piece into the joint, push the piece together. So you got the arm, this hand is the arm, this hand is moving the actual hand of the toy. Push the hand inward as you move it up and down, and that's going to put the pressure on the proper part of the joint, which is the fulcrum there. So I hope that makes sense. I did that when I took all both these figures out of the package. First thing I did was move all those joints, and I knew they were warm enough to do that. And sure enough, I could hear a little cracking, a little moving, and it wasn't bad at all. It was just the loosening of the oils that are in the joint and the paints that were probably on the joint from the factory. Once that's done and you got your joints moving, then I went through the whole figure and moved all the joints, made sure everything was solid. And this guy, both of them they're made out of a very rubbery, probably parts rubber and also parts PVC plastic. There's not a lot of ABS. So ABS is the real hard shell plastic. PVC is the softer stuff that you see a lot of 80s, your solid, softer plastics made out of, and still today. And this guy seems to be almost mostly PVC plastic, which is great, and hard rubber. Maybe on the inside, the skeleton of the guy is a little ABS stuff, the harder plastic. But everything seems to be flexible. Even his shield is hard and durable as it is. It's got a little bit of give. His shoulder piece up here, very hard, very tough. I mean, you could break a window with that thing, but it's still got a little bit of bend to it. All the way down, all through the figure. It's really durable and it's really great. So I like to see that from NECA. I'm not afraid of this guy falling off the shelf, or Warduke falling off the shelf and breaking a limb, unless it, you know, it would have to really land and hit the right spot for like a hip or a shoulder to break. Other than that, he's virtually quote-unquote bulletproof. Maybe on Warduke, his bat ears, if he were to fall from a high off a shelf. But even still, that's a more brittle plastic, but it's still got a lot of give, as I'll show you. Along with that, as far as safety concerns go, I'm not really worried about anything, because all these pieces, even his sword, as long and thin as it is, it's got a good wiggle to it, you know, softness. So that's great. As far as accessories, he does come with 3 sets of interchangeable hands. He's got an open hand. He's got a pointer finger. He's got 2 closed fists. And then the ones that I've got him holding him right now, he's got his he's got his open hand, which is like a shield hand, which I think I'll just probably leave on that, or maybe exchange that for a fist. And then his weapons hand, his grabber holder hand, which is, as you can see, holding his mace, which is a really amazing piece of work, with the snake motif going on, and a lot of spikes. These spikes are probably the hardest pieces of plastic on the whole figure. Those would definitely do some damage if you squeeze them, but it looks great, especially when you look at vintage in comparison, which I love. I love the silver of him and of the mace with the red. But this is a great update. It's absolutely, I mean, this guy likes snakes. Also has a lot of give and bend to it. I'm not worried about that thing breaking. Put that in his hand. He has his snake shield. Some excellent detail on there. Great sculpt all around. His articulation, I'm not going to really go through the articulation. It's great, very basic. If you can see single jointed knees and elbows, which are a little tough in places to bend, but the red parts of his armor do move out of the way. He's got his chainmail underneath there, the silver stuff. He's got his, all this stuff is flex and soft. You can see he's got a little bit of twist and bend in his torso, but not much. We don't need it though, I don't think. He's not an acrobat. He's not going to be doing circus moves. So the only, and then his head is on a ball joint, a lot of wiggle space, wiggle room there. His horns do move up and down. Similar, his horns, you also want to make sure they're loose, warmed up, but they are also a softer plastic, but actually those are a little bit harder as well. I love the sculpt of the face, the mohawk. He's got details upon details. He's got his eyes, all that stuff. The sculpt, the war, the battle wounds. His mohawk, he looks so awesome. I brought that up a couple times, but I really like that. He has his sheath here, the snake ring tail right there, which can, as I had his sword, kind of just goes right in. It expands. It's definitely a softer rubber, and the sword goes right in there. Another really nice aspect of the figure, on his shield, they went with the soft rubber on the shield here. You can see mushy, which is awesome. This stuff has the wood, almost like wood grain, but it's still as hard as this. It's a chunk of plastic, but it has a little bit of give, which I'm glad. You can see the sculpt there, amazing. And then what else? Yeah, not much. He's what do you call it? Articulation wise, very basic stuff. He's got joints and movement everywhere you'd want it, and then some. I love the sculpt of the overlaid armor over the silver. You kind of get the feel like you could actually take it off, which you can't. But a menacing figure. His paint job is great. Solid colors throughout. but then it's got almost everywhere he's got this dry brush of silver to bring out the highlights and the ridges of the armor, which is really a lot of attention to detail, and yet not overly detailed. He has a texture to him that feels like, I don't know, feels like this armor's just been like heated and smoked in fire and then bloodied on. It's awesome. So great detail, great detail. The only issues that I've had while I've been messing with him are his ankles. He has plenty of articulation in his ankle, but going backwards, it does kind of stop with this overlay of armor, which is soft rubber. But that's not to say he's not, like you can see he's sturdy, he's staying put. But there's not a lot of give when it comes to when you start putting him in dynamic poses. And I'm not really a dynamic pose kind of guy when he's on the shelf. I give him the superhero pose, the hero pose, or the villain pose, whatever you want to give him, and go from there. And at the end of the video, stay tuned. I'll do some glamour shots and try to get him in as many dynamic poses as I can. But let's finish up with the last, what you call your accessory, which was his sword, which right off the bat, taking it out of the package, I love it. I love the feel of it. It's a real durable, scale-wise, extra long. Got the fangs, the fang motif going on there. A lot of attention to detail to this figure, and he's great. Grimsword, menacing. It is a menacing. This is Jason Voorhees of the Dungeons & Dragons universe. Grimsword, excellent figure. I hope I answered everything I wanted to say. I can't get over how, at first when I saw how big he was in comparison to Warduke, I was like, that doesn't make sense, but it absolutely does. It's kind of like the Mountain from Game of Thrones. Like, there's just big dudes out there. So let's move over to Warduke. Look at this guy. So this guy is just slick. I love the look of him. Same as far as safety goes for the figure. Same issues as far as the joints go. I demonstrated with his, with the hands. You want to put the hand into the arm, and then first you want to move it around before you even put it in. But as you're articulating the joint, you want to make sure you're using the fulcrum of the joint, pushing it together, using the hinge rather than stressing the peg, because you'll get a snap there. But these pegs are really thick, durable, solid build all the way around on both figures. Other than that, I've heard a couple people, I think Robo on the Fwoosh said that his sheath here for this dagger, I think he pulled the ring off. I think it's a real metal ring. As he was taking it out of the package, the sheath stayed behind and the chain came apart. So I made sure to be careful when I was taking mine out. But as I said, once you get all the plastic snips clipped, the pieces just fall out. They're in there secure, but they're also ready to come out, which is great. And then the other thing is, it seems at first that this dagger is very loose and will fall out of the sheath, but if you give it just a little extra push, it clicks in. Now it's not going anywhere. So check that out. As far as what that's going to do for the sheath is two pieces glued together. I don't know if that's going to cause it to separate, but it seems like, because when you do pop it in there, clip it in, make it click in there, when you do that, you can see it's pretty seamless as far as how it's stored in the sheath. So I feel like it was made to do that. But mine's in there loose, since it's just dangling. I'm down with that. A couple other safety concerns for the figure. The flame effect, which is amazing, does not want to go onto the sword right away. So what I did was I hit it with a little bit of heat from my hairdryer, softened it up for 10-15 seconds at most, and then it slid on. I worked it down. It got on pretty good. If you don't do that, and again, similar to the joint, putting stress on the peg. If you're holding the sword by the handle and you're trying to slide the flame effect over it, it's going to wiggle because this sword is flexible. It's got flex to it. And if you're pushing down too hard and you're putting pressure on the part right up here where it's not supposed to have pressure, it will break, it will snap. So heat that up, slide it on, be careful with the hairdryer, obviously. And then, yeah, safety-wise, I think that's it. I mentioned his earpieces up here. Be careful with those. They do have flex, but they are probably a little bit more brittle than the rest. Amazing sculpt on the face. You can see he has, when you look underneath, I don't know if you can see, there's like a helmet underneath the helmet. So he's wearing 2 hats today, which is great. There's like a detail to the black part that surrounds his face under the blue helmet. Just that face design is iconic. It's so amazing. So yeah, I mean, he's sculpt-wise flawless. Articulation-wise, pretty much the same as Grimsword. And he doesn't have the issue of something getting in the way of his ankle, because there's nothing covering that, so that's great. Single joints on the knees and elbows. The only issue, if I have a gripe at all, are the shoulders. Not only are they really tight, going up and down, again, push the joint in as you hold the body, push it in as you lift up. This one's really tight, I'll have to work on that. But his arms are permanently resting outward like that. He's got that big boy come at me stance, which is cool, but you can't put the arms straight down because of the joint and the size of the biceps. He's got Arnold biceps. Other than that, which isn't really big of a complaint, you can get him in poses that work regardless. Phenomenal figure. The sculpt of this guy is amazing. As far as his accessories, he's got the sword with the flame effect. He's got the dagger, as I mentioned, that slips right out. Little skinny one. Just gonna like get it in you before you even know it's there. He's got another one over here that's more. It's definitely into the sheath. Pretty tight. And it doesn't. There we go. So that one's got curvy design to it. And that one fits in extremely snug, so much so that I can see a little bit of brown paint from the sheath on the sword from when I just pulled it out. Doesn't bother me. I can pretend it's blood, but that one's not going anywhere. That one's in there. See, and then there goes the other dagger. Then he's got his, before I take the flame effect off, he's got his shield, which I will put on, which is really cool. It's also got the flex rubbery leather fake stuff, but then they went a little bit different with this bar that he can grab with his hand. I like that, because also with the bar, if you want to put a dagger in his hand or have the pointing hand in it instead of the dagger. Let's see. Okay, take the knife. Okay, so he's got the knife. If you want to store the shield, it'll just hang right here. Clips very nicely over that sword sheath, and he can display with that on his back, Captain America style. Love it. It's pretty awesome. But then, if you want to do it proper, take the sword out, and all the fingers. I'm going to switch out his hand as well. All the fingers on the hands are flexible. Take the fire off, take the shield off, put the sword again. With the sword, you want to make sure you're feeding it into the sheath. It doesn't just fall in. It's pretty snug, so you want to feed it bit by bit. Don't push it from the top all the way down. Don't push it all the way down from the top, because you will bend it in a bad way. But it sits in there really nice. And you could probably still put the shield. It's going to bend the handle, so let's not do that. So, with the shield, I'm going to take back his dagger hand. And I'm going to put the hand on the shield, grasping the shield, before I put it into the peg. And that way, slide that in, boom. And that shield's not going anywhere. All right, I didn't need to switch out this dagger, give him like the little shiv dagger. I like it. That's the confident dagger. Like, he's got all this armor and bigness and shield and menacing look, and a little tiny dagger because he knows he can handle you with it. He's just gonna be like, come on, here we go. Look at that guy. Phenomenal. Great figure. So he also comes with an open, which I actually really like, an open kind of grabby hand. Let's get that. Which you can see has a detailed glove underneath the armor, so the armor's laid over, and the armor has, almost looks like you can take it off. Pretty awesome. Great hand. And he also has the pointing hand when he wants to shame someone. Dungeon Master, you're just a little jerk, not telling anybody how to get home. And then he's got his a second sword hand, because the handles of the two daggers are different sizes, so they're just slightly different to accommodate those daggers. And that's Warduke. Amazing. NECA, good job. I really like the figures. I'd say I'd give them like a 9.5 out of 10. I'd say the biggest gripe I have out of both figures, the shoulder joints on Warduke being so tight and keeping his arms puffed out, and over here on Grimsword, the ankles. Other than that, they are what they are. They are what you expect them to be. They're not Marvel Legends. They're larger scaled, 7-inch scale, 8-inch scale, statuesque but very articulate, awesome action figures. So they look great. They smell great. I'm going to pass it back over to AC. Stay tuned for some glamour shots. AC, take it away. Where are the oats, you might ask? Not to worry, the oats are right here. Whoa. Hal and oats. I don't know. Here's some oats. What? This is me. Right? Cronin Oats. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. I really like the comparison of the vintage toys with these. They're going to be probably displayed on my shelf right next to each other. Great figures from NECA. Good job. Kudos, you guys. I hope you liked the review. I hope I said everything you wanted me to say. I probably didn't, but that's fine, because I'm just telling you about these toys that I like. In the meantime, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment below. I answer all the comments. I don't know what accent I just inhabited there, but I answer all the comments below, so be sure to leave one. Watch my old videos, and if you want to support the channel directly, you can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/actoydesign, where you'll find my behind-the-scenes articles on all my customs and toy design, as well as my podcast, You Like Toys. 91 episodes on our way to 100. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it either. Okay, we won't miss it. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to set these guys down so that I can do this. Bang! Pow! The cross thumbs up. Look at that. Thank you for joining me. It's been fun. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, Igum, Mooj, what do you have to say? Yes. Jimmy Brunkus. Sit, Mooji, sit. Good dog.